A movie ticket can cost less than a combo meal at the same theater. And somehow, the popcorn is the part that feels unreasonable. It is corn, oil, salt, and a paper tub. So when that costs more than an actual meal outside, the obvious conclusion feels easy. The theater is gouging you because it can. That is not exactly wrong, but it is also not the real answer. Because the strange part is not that popcorn is expensive. The strange part is why theaters need popcorn to be expensive in the first place. Most people treat the ticket as the main product. You go to a theater to watch a movie, so it feels natural to assume the movie ticket is where the theater makes its money. But theaters and studios do not split the economics in a simple, friendly way. Ticket revenue is shared, and the studio side often takes a large cut, especially on the biggest new releases, and especially early in a film's run. So the ticket brings people into the building, but the popcorn is where the theater has far more control over the margin. That changes the whole picture. The movie gets you through the door. The snack stand is where the theater gets to breathe. Once you see that, popcorn starts making ugly economic sense. It is cheap to produce, fast to serve, smells strong, feels traditional, and for a lot of people, it does not feel optional. That matters, because the theater is not just selling food. It is pricing a habit that already belongs to the experience. A burger has substitutes. Dinner has alternatives. Movie popcorn barely does. You are already there. The lights are about to dim. You are not comparison shopping across town, so popcorn becomes the ideal place to load margin. Not because popcorn is precious, because it is captive. But that still leaves the obvious question. If theaters need more money, why not just make the ticket more expensive and stop pretending? Because a high ticket price scares people earlier. You see it before you commit. It is the number that decides whether movie night happens at all. Popcorn works differently. It hits after you already said yes, and psychologically, that matters. The ticket is the cost of entry. The concession stand is framed like a choice, even when it barely feels like one. So part of what you are seeing is not just revenue strategy, it is price design. Keep the headline price lower. Move more of the pain inside. Let the snack carry margin the ticket cannot safely carry on its own. And this is why theaters kept leaning harder into concessions instead of treating them like a side business. The building is expensive. The screens are expensive. The sound, staffing, utilities, rent, cleaning, maintenance, and constant upgrades do not disappear just because the ticket belongs partly to the movie. That is also why chains keep pushing premium snacks, alcohol, dine-in service, subscriptions, and even collectible popcorn buckets. Once the movie business got harder, the lobby had to become smarter. So the popcorn stand stopped being a snack counter. It became part of the financial architecture. That is why movie theater popcorn costs more than a meal. Not because popcorn is secretly valuable, because the theater is not really pricing corn. It is pricing the part of the night it actually gets to own. The ticket says you are paying for the movie. The popcorn is where the business quietly tries to survive. So the next time that tub looks absurdly overpriced, you are not looking at a snack with a crazy markup. You are looking at part of the real admission model. If you want more small things with big reasons, subscribe.